Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to a very cool game that I prepared for you today. It's a Stockfish 15 against its arch enemy Leela C0 in the open, Ruy Lopez in the so-called Bernstein variation. And this Bernstein variation we have seen recently in the candidates in 2022 in a beautiful game played by two top grandmasters Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana. And that's what I like about the recent games that we have covered in this top engine level that have been played between the Stockfish 15 and Leela C0 because they played many of this, I like to call them playable openings, because we don't want to see bad openings like maybe the Perch defense. You don't want to see, of course, the Alekhine defense. That will not happen many times. I think we want to see more of this solid openings like the Sicilian Queen's Game decline, Ninzo Indian, Ruy Lopez Italian game. So the playable openings that are played in top grandmaster level and maybe in some other levels of chess. But as I said, we want to see new opportunities, new sidelines, new improvements in this particular opening. So that's why I liked really now the couple of games that we have covered recently, because they're showing really some great theoretical novelties, but also some good new ideas that you can apply maybe in your home preparation. So let's see now Stockfish 15 against Leela C0 in the open Bernstein variation of the Ruy Lopez opening. So here e4 was the opening by Stockfish 15. We have e5 by Leela C0, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5, the Spanish game. The Ruy Lopez is on the board. So a6, the Murphy defense. We have bishop to a4, knight to f6, kingside castling, and after move knight takes e4, it becomes now the open Ruy Lopez, because of course the center is now taken, the center pawn is taken. So that's why we have now open file. So that's why it's called the open Ruy Lopez. So we have now d4, and this is now a natural idea by white. White wants to open further the position, because the knight gets, of course, a little bit in front of the king. So now if something gets cleared, then rook to e8 is the main tactical threat. So here in the continuation we have b5, still the main line. We have bishop to b3, and now after move d5 the knight gets cemented. So now at least for a while white is getting challenged, because black has now cemented the position in the center of the board. So now there's no way that white will open now the e file. So that's why now in the continuation white gets his pawn back. So d takes the e5, and now we have bishop to e6. So we have here knight from b to d2 by Stockfish 15 in the game between Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana. Hikaru played c3, then the game transposed into this bishop to c5, knight to d2. Castling was played by Fabiano, and now after move bishop to c2, finally this knight got challenged. But now Fabiano Caruana pulled off this tactical shot, knight takes f2, then rook to f2, bishop to f2, and then after king to f2, f6 was the continuation. Now it became really a beautiful and wild game. But as I said, in this line Stockfish played immediately knight from b to d2, Leela c0 played knight to c5, and now we have a similar position with the move c3. So here in the continuation, bishop to e7, we have bishop to c2, and now d4 played by Leela c0, which is in many occasions is a little bit risky when you push the pawns in the center of the board and you didn't secure the king by castling. In many occasions it's a wrong idea, and I think also in this game you see how it can be dangerous, although we have to say it's not such a huge mistake, because black has really a good control with this minor pieces. So all of these minor pieces are out, the queen is very active, so it's not a huge mistake. But there is simply this rule: don't push pawns, don't go into dynamics if you haven't secured the king. And that's now, I think, a perfect example, because now Stockfish will punish, I think, a little bit here the king in the central position. So here in the continuation, knight to b3. Okay, still of course black can always calculate. It's not the point about that, but actually with this tiny little provocative moves that Stockfish played, now here Stockfish is actually not allowing Leela c0 to calculate immediately. So we have here d takes c3, we have now knight takes c5, bishop to c5, and now bishop to e4. So you see the knight is a little bit loose on the board. If you play, of course, after move knight to c5 here, if you play something like queen takes d1 first, it's not a problem. Rook to d1, okay, now you take out maybe here the knight on c5. This is still the threat, because it's so unpleasant now to play the game like this from black's perspective. Look at this knight is pinned, and I see only 2 games in the database in this particular line, and in both of them white was winning. The evaluation is +1 here, so it's a much better continuation. You have to now play move like bishop to d7, but look at this now. We can take b takes c3, bishop to g5 is going to happen, so the rook cannot get here on d8, so you cannot protect further your bishop. And now the king is a little bit stuck here. You cannot castle. In the near future maybe we can play also a rook battery on the d file, so it's really unpleasant to play the game like this. Even the bishop to f4, in some occasions we can even, I think, sacrifice rook takes d7 followed maybe with some ideas of bishop to c6. So there is simply too much tension, I think, here around the square d7. So as I said, this is very important to know this, because actually black cannot simplify the game, which actually I think black would love to do. Black cannot simplify the game by trading off the queens. That's now the most important thing to recognize about this line. So that's why after move knight to c5 we have bishop to c5, we have bishop to e4. Again, the same motif, sort of. Still this knight is a little bit loose on the board, so we have now queen to d7 and now bishop to g5. Again, Stockfish is not allowing this rook to come into the game, because then it's a good protector of the d7 square. Then it can also create, of course, a very powerful battery on the d file. So this is now a very important prophylactic move. So we have now c takes b2, rook to b1, and now after move rook to b8, now again I'm pointing out, again, if you try here queen to d1, rook to d1, again there's no good way to defend this position. Again, bishop to d7, but now look at this, a rook to b2 can be played, and now the serious strategy team rook to c2. Both of these pieces are lined up here on the c file, so I guarantee you this is completely losing here for black. So that's why after move rook to b1 we see rook to b8 has been played by Leela c0, maybe with some ideas to play rook to b6, and now finally to defend this position. But okay, still notice that the king is in the center, and still notice that the queen is a little bit exposed here, and it is a little bit overloaded, we have to say it's stuck here, and it has to defend now the knight on c6. So that's why Stockfish plays now queen to c2, gets out of the d file, and she's trying now, of course, to include the rook, is trying to include the rook into the attack. So that's why here bishop to c4, first attacking the rook. We have a rook to d1, and now an interesting idea here by Leela c0, knight to d4. And from this point on, the fun really starts. So from this point on, Stockfish played really a brutal immortal attack. Here Stockfish has, of course, the opportunity to take out immediately the knight, bishop to d4, bishop to d4, and now the problem is in the near future c5 will happen, so black will cement the position. Black will really have a solid position, will fix both of these pawns on very active squares, and there's nothing that can be done. I think here black should be even slightly better. So that's why you have to be active here. After move knight to d4, Stockfish played really a beautiful attacking idea. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the first best continuation. Try to complicate things a little bit. Maybe, as I said, just for fun, try to see the best continuation, because we have to really notice this position as a king in the center position. So take your time and try to see now really the best continuation. It's the only continuation that brings sort of an advantage here for white in this position. So okay, the beautiful move that Stockfish saw, of course, Stockfish cannot see anything, but that Stockfish calculated, of course, it's the beautiful move e6. And look at this, if you take with the bishop, the pawn on e6, then the bishop on c5 is hanging. So look at this, if you try knight takes c2, if you take out here the queen, then of course first we take out the queen with the check. Now you have to step back because there's no good square anymore for the king, and now with the move queen to d8 we have here a promotion, and it's game over. Rook to d8 is immediately a checkmate. So queen to e6 here, this position to take out the pawn is also not working, because then the knight is not protected, so it's not working. So that's why here after move e6 you have to take with the pawn, f takes e6. But look at this, still the king is so endangered, so still the king didn't castle, and here Stockfish continues the pressure play, simply queen to b2, attacks now the knight 3 times. So that's why it was this continuation, it's pretty much forced. Knight to f3, bishop to f3, the queen is now under fire. So here Leela c0 try to cover with the move bishop to d6, and let's now again stop and evaluate the position and stop and try to see now the best continuation. Take your time, again try to see a beautiful tactical shot here for white. So it's really hard, but I think if you take a couple minutes you find it for sure. So from this point on, Stockfish is really brutalizing Leela C0. Actually, with the move E6, the tactical sequence started. So now try to see, as I said, the best continuation. Okay. Give you just a couple more seconds. So okay, obviously there is a huge problem here for black. As I said, the king is still in the center. There is now the weakness of the square g7, and there is now also a little bit of tension on the d file. There is also this idea, bishop to c6, to deflect somehow the queen. So that's why here the correct move is rook takes d6. And look at this, there is also this idea. Maybe if you play too early, bishop to c6, it's a huge problem. That's, I think, something worth to notice, because after queen to c6, we can take out now the pawn on g7, but now with rook to f8, actually black can defend everything because the bishop on e7 is now covering everything. So now there is no checkmate threat here on e7. So that's why here, first of all, what Stockfish did is getting rid of this annoying bishop on d6, which is a good defensive piece. Here we have c takes d6. Now bishop to c6, again deflecting the queen from the defense of the pawn, but now with queen to g7, there's no good way anymore for black to defend the rook. Rook to f8 is not working, of course, anymore because the bishop is not there anymore. So now queen to e7 is a beautiful checkmate. So that's why actually in this tactical sequence, Leela c0 has to give back the rook. Here we have queen to b7. We have rook to queen takes rook on h8. We have king to d7. Now again queen to h7, a check. We have now a new check, and now with queen to g6, here Stockfish stopped the attack and has now reached this position. Okay, let's stop and evaluate the position again, because it's very important to notice what's going on the board, because obviously black has a decent compensation, although we have to say black is here really endangered king, but black is still 4 pawns, and also we have to say these 2 connected pawns. Now we can also take out this pawn, so black can also have, I think, a good march with this connected pass pawns on the A and B file. But the huge problem is, of course, I think, the endangered king position. So that's now the most important tactical problem for black, because white can always give a check and also include the bishop in the attack, and it's much easier for white to push now simply the h pawn, because black cannot create any check. So that's now the huge difference in this position, although the material is about equal, but it's all about king security thing here, I think here. So that's why it's a much better continuation here for Stockfish 15. So okay, Leela c0 continued with bishop to a2. We have a rook to c1, first a check, bishop to c4. So still Leela covers everything, but now comes the beautiful idea h4. So you see, it's much easier now for, as I said, for white to push the pawn, because the king is here perfectly fine. So in the continuation, we have queen to c8, h5, queen to g8, queen to f6, and now rook to f8, trying to attack the queen. Of course, queen to e7, a new check. Here, king to c6, and okay, so far no more checks are possible by white, but still this is quite an unpleasant pawn, this pawn on the h file. So here in the continuation, we have rook to a1. Now look at this. Okay, the rook had some fun and attacked the queen a couple of times, but now this is a huge weakness in the position. So that's why here a5, Leela c0 is saying, okay, you can take out the pawn, but at least it doesn't come with a check. So if you try rook to a8, if you try to protect this pawn like this, then still look at this, h6 can happen. You push maybe also the pawn further. Look, h7 is going to happen. Now you can play maybe queen to f8, but now we can take, and now with bishop to f6, the game is over. If you take, of course, then we'll simply promote. If you don't react, we'll promote anyway. So it's a game over for black for sure. So that's why after move rook to a1, here a5 was played, rook to a5. We have rook to a8, and now comes again a beautiful motif here by Stockfish 15. Stockfish sacrificed the rook for the progress here of the pawn with the move h6, and Leela didn't fall for this, because if you take rook to a5, then you get this one, and we have here h7. You have to play something like queen to c8, and now comes the beautiful stunning tactic, maybe just for fun. Try to again see now the best continuation here for white. And it's not the move bishop to f6, because bishop to f6, you have here this one, rook to a8 is going to cover everything. So maybe you can promote, but we'll simply take it out. Look at this, and still I don't think that this is enough, that this is completely winning here, because black can build always sort of a fortress with this bishop, with the rook, with the 3 pawns. So I'm sure that in top engine level this would end in a draw, because also the Stockfish engine at home shows that this is a 0.0 evaluation for both sides. So as I said, that's why here after move rook to a8 and h6, if black would have taken, now let's see, after move h7, as we said, we had this position, queen to c8. This wasn't played in the game, but try to see now really the best continuation. So it's maybe hard to see, but it's a beautiful motif. Okay, it's actually queen to d8, and this is beautiful because of a queen to d8, bishop to d8. Okay, you can maybe try to attack the 8th rank, but now the bishop stands in the way and we just promote a new queen. Really beautiful tactical shot. So that's why after move h6, here bishop to d3 was played by Leela c0, not allowing the potential progress of the pawn, but actually h7 is possible because the queen is a little bit overloaded. So the queen is stuck to this square, but also is stuck to the a8. So we have here really the beautiful overload tactic. Now after move bishop to h7, now we have rook takes a8. Now the queen has to react. We have queen takes a8, and now Stockfish 15 takes out now the bishop and has now a completely winning endgame here, because still, okay, you have maybe one check. Here king to h2 was played. Okay, a new check, but now with f4, no checks are possible. The king is secured, and white is simply up a whole bishop. So queen to d4, we have a queen to g8, king to d5, and now the queen comes into the game. Now again a new check, again a new check, again a couple of perpetuals, queen to b7, king to c5, again the queen comes behind the pawns. We want to just grab one of them. We have queen to c4, f5, really beautiful move, e takes f5. Now a new check, you have to go here to b4. Now Stockfish takes out not this pawn. We have a queen to b3, queen to d1, we have king to a2, again beautiful motif, queen to d4, because if you trade it off, of course this bishop is waiting always this pawn. Meanwhile the king will go to this pawn, and this passer is going to win the game. So after move queen to d4, we have queen to c6. Now we have queen to b4, preparing bishop to d4 and a checkmate. We have queen to c7, we have king to g1, queen to c6, and after move bishop to c5 and queen to e6. In this position Leela c0 resigned. Okay, there's the obvious threat that always we want to just deliver checks and maybe trade off the queens, and as we said, then it's a completely winning endgame for white. So beautiful, stunning tactics in the beginning. I really love this game because I think many of you will reach maybe this open Bernstein variation, especially with those ideas, maybe at least to trade off the queens when black is trying to play maybe queen to d1. You see it's not working. The tension around the square c6 is a little bit too much, and if your opponent stays maybe too long with the king in the center, maybe you can also pull off this beautiful tactical shot. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the open Ruy Lopez. If you want to see more attractive game like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by Alpha Zero, Leela Zero, Stockfish, Stockfish Engine, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.